I never thought I'd be the guy telling the world about his wife's infidelity. I always thought we were the perfect couple. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. My name is Matt, and I've been married to Jenna for 6 years. We had what you might call a picture-perfect life. A cozy home in the suburbs, a decent job at a tech company, and a bustling social life filled with friends and family. But somewhere along the way, things began to unravel and I was too blind to see it. It started with the little things. Jenna was always the life of the party, but recently she had become more distant. She'd often come home late from work, claiming she was stuck in endless meetings. At first I thought nothing of it. Life gets busy, right? Then there were the unexplained phone calls, always muted or cut short when I walked into the room. I'd catch her giving me that practiced smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. Still, I brushed it off. After all, we were busy adults navigating our careers. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I decided to surprise her. I picked up her favorite takeout, got some ice cream, and planned a cozy night at home. But when I got to our house, I found it empty and quiet. I waited for her to come home, but as the hours passed, my excitement turned into worry. It was past midnight when she finally walked through the door, reeking of perfume that wasn't hers. I confronted her, and she spun a tale about an office party that had run late. My gut told me something was off. I could feel the tension between us, and her excuses rang hollow in my ears. That night, I went to bed feeling uneasy, but I told myself to trust her. Maybe I was being paranoid. Days turned into weeks, and my suspicion grew. I started to notice the little things that had slipped past my radar before. Jenna was more secretive with her phone, and there were times I'd catch her texting with a strange intensity. I wanted to confront her about it, but I kept silencing that voice in my head, the one telling me to dig deeper. Then came the fateful day when everything changed. I was cleaning out our study, and I stumbled upon her diary tucked away in the back of the bookshelf. The cover was worn, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in a while. My curiosity got the better of me, and I flipped it open. The first few pages were filled with banal details about her day, but as I read further, my heart sank. Scrawled in her messy handwriting were love notes, intimate details about her new friend, and references to nights spent together that left me feeling nauseous. The final entry was signed "Goodbye," and it felt like a punch to the gut. My mind raced as I processed the words. Jenna had been cheating on me. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as I realized I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. I felt like I was in a nightmare, trapped in a surreal world where the woman I loved had betrayed me so deeply. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, pacing the living room, my mind racing with anger and disbelief. She had called me her soulmate, and here she was, writing love notes to another man. My heart was shattered, and I felt lost, like a ship tossed about in a stormy sea. The next morning I confronted her. When Jenna walked in, her smile faltered for a brief second as she saw my expression. I threw the diary on the table and she froze. I could see the color drain from her face as she realized I knew everything. "Matt, I can explain," she stammered, but I couldn't let her talk. I demanded answers, and when she attempted to deny it, the rage bubbled to the surface. I asked how she could betray me like this, how she could say those things and then come home to me every night. Jenna's excuses flew out of her mouth, each one worse than the last. She claimed it was just a poorly written fantasy, something to vent her frustrations about our marriage. I felt like I was trapped in a twisted episode of a bad soap opera. Did she really think I would buy that? I could see the desperation in her eyes, but it didn't soften the blow. As she rambled on about her feelings and how she thought we had grown apart, my heart turned cold. I felt anger rising within me. But alongside it was a deep sadness that I couldn't shake. I loved her, but her betrayal was too much to bear. I left the room, my mind racing with conflicting emotions, struggling to process the magnitude of what had just happened. I was left standing there, heartbroken and confused, contemplating what my next steps would be. The emotional impact was brutal. I felt like I had been blindsided by a freight train. My world had just collapsed around me, and I needed to find a way to pick up the pieces. What happened next would change everything. Would you like to continue with the next part? The days that followed the confrontation felt like an unending loop of agony and disbelief. Jenna and I were like two strangers inhabiting the same house. Our once warm and loving home turned into a cold battlefield. I decided to sleep in the guest room, needing distance from the woman who had shattered my trust. Every time I passed her in the hallway, it felt like walking past a ghost. She was there, but she was no longer my wife. She was a reminder of betrayal. Jenna tried to initiate conversations, wanting to work things out, but my anger overshadowed any hope of reconciliation. Each time she spoke, her words grinded against my raw emotions like chalk on a blackboard. I couldn't comprehend her attempts at explaining her feelings. All I could hear were the echoes of her love notes written for someone else. I felt sick thinking about her with another man, laughing and sharing intimate moments that were supposed to belong to us. I spent countless nights lying awake in that guest room, my mind racing. The betrayal dug deep into my psyche. I replayed every moment in our relationship, searching for signs that I had overlooked. It was maddening. I found myself obsessively thinking about who this other man could be. Did he know about me? Did he know how she'd lied to my face? I felt like a fool for having trusted her blindly while she poured out her heart to someone else. One evening, while poring over her diary again, I stumbled upon more details about him, her so-called friend. His name was Eric, and he was a colleague from her office. The realization that she had been sneaking around with someone I could picture so easily sent waves of fury through me. I imagined him laughing at my expense, knowing that I was oblivious to their affair. I felt a surge of rage that pushed me to make a decision. I needed to confront this Eric. I wanted him to feel the same gut-wrenching pain that I was feeling. I wanted to know what he thought about her when she told him she loved him. I wanted to see his face when he realized that he had torn apart my life. It was a dark thought, but anger fueled my resolve. I devised a plan. I would go to the office where Jenna worked and confront him. My heart raced at the thought, each beat echoing my resolve. I felt empowered by my anger, and the idea of revenge was intoxicating. I needed to see if he would have the same bravado in front of me as he did when he was with Jenna. The next day, I gathered my courage and drove to her office. My stomach was twisted with anticipation and resentment. I parked outside and took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to happen. The office building was sleek and modern, filled with the kind of people who seemed to thrive in their corporate environments. Jenna's laughter echoed in my mind, and I felt sick. I walked into the building, my heart pounding. I approached the receptionist, who looked at me with curiosity. When I asked for Eric, her eyebrows shot up as she checked the list. "Are you expected?" she asked, and I could hear the skepticism in her voice. "No, but I'll wait," I replied, my tone firm. After what felt like an eternity, Eric finally walked through the entrance. He was tall, with an air of confidence that made my blood boil. I watched him interact with a few coworkers, throwing his head back in laughter like he owned the place. My stomach churned as I imagined him doing the same with Jenna. In that moment, I felt a mix of heartache and rage wash over me. When he turned his back to me, I seized my chance. "Hey, Eric," I called out, my voice loud enough to draw attention. He turned around, his smile faltering as he registered who I was. "Matt," he said, stunned. The other employees nearby whispered among themselves, sensing the tension. "Yeah, Matt, her husband," I replied, my tone clipped. "We need to talk." I felt a rush of adrenaline, a sense of vindication that I was finally putting a face to the pain. "What the hell are you doing here?" he asked, irritation flashing across his face. I could tell he was caught off guard, and that pleased me. "I want to know what you think you're doing with my wife," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the storm raging within me. "You think it's okay to flirt with someone who's married, to steal someone's wife right from under their nose?" His expression shifted from surprise to defensiveness. "This isn't what you think," he began, but I cut him off. "Isn't it? You think I don't know about your little friendship, the love notes, the late nights?" I felt fire in my veins, my anger boiling over. He opened his mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. I launched into a tirade, exposing my feelings of betrayal and pain. I could see other employees shifting uncomfortably, but I didn't care. I wanted him to understand the devastation he had caused. I wanted to see his face when he realized he had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Jenna loved me, I spat, and you took that away from me. Do you even care about the damage you've done? As I spoke, I could see his bravado crumbling. He stammered, trying to defend himself, but I wasn't listening. I wanted him to know that he couldn't just walk away from this. There were consequences for his actions. After a few more heated exchanges, I stormed out of the building, leaving him standing there, mouth agape. I felt exhilarated yet devastated. I had confronted the man who had harmed my marriage, but it didn't bring me any satisfaction. Instead, it added another layer to my already heavy heart. Driving home, I was overwhelmed with emotions. I had confronted Eric, but what did it really change? I still had to face Jenna. I still had to grapple with the fact that she had betrayed me. As I walked through the door of our house, I braced myself for the next confrontation. I had stood up for myself, but I knew the hardest conversation was still ahead. My heart raced as I realized I was about to face the woman who had shattered my world. Would you like to continue with the next part? The moment I stepped through the door, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I just confronted the man who had been a thorn in my side, yet all my anger was still directed at Jenna. I knew I had to deal with her, and I couldn't escape the reality of our situation any longer. The house felt empty, filled with a silence that echoed with the memories of laughter and love that had once flourished here. I found her in the living room, her eyes widening with a mixture of surprise and fear when she saw me. "Matt, you're home early," she said, attempting to muster a smile, but it was weak and forced. I couldn't help but notice how different she seemed to me now, almost like a stranger. "Yeah, I thought we needed to talk," I replied coolly, trying to maintain my composure despite the storm of emotions swirling within me. I could see a flicker of anxiety in her eyes, and it only fueled my determination. "About what?" she asked, but I could tell she already suspected what was coming. I didn't waste any time. "I confronted Eric today," I said, watching as her face paled. "Matt, please," she started, but I raised a hand, cutting her off. "Don't, just don't. I have a lot to say, and I need you to listen." I felt a surge of anger as I launched into the details of my encounter. I described how I'd walked into her office, the way Eric had looked when he realized I was her husband. Her expression shifted from shock to something resembling guilt, but I didn't want to dwell on her feelings. I was too consumed by my own pain. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice rising with emotion. "Did you really think you could write love notes to him and come home to me like everything was fine?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stammered, "Matt, I made mistakes. We've been drifting apart for so long, I didn't know how to talk to you about it." "Drifting apart?" I scoffed. "You don't just cheat on someone because you're drifting apart. You talk about your problems, you don't write love letters to another man." She looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "I thought it was just a phase, something I could get over, but then it became more," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you." Her words, though filled with remorse, felt hollow. I was struggling to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had betrayed me. "How can I trust you again, Jenna? How can I believe anything you say?" I shot back, the bitterness heavy in my throat. "I'll do anything to earn your trust back," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you, Matt. I made a terrible choice and I regret it every day. I want to fix this." I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a faint glimmer of hope. But could love really conquer betrayal? I was torn between my heart and my head. "You think it's that easy? You can't just say you love me and expect everything to go back to normal," I said sharply. "I know. I know it's not easy, but I want to try," she begged, stepping closer to me. "Please, let's go to counseling. Let's work through this together." The thought of counseling felt like a double-edged sword. Part of me wanted to believe that we could fix things, but the other part knew that trust was something that takes time to rebuild, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "You don't get it, do you? It's not just about fixing things. You've broken something that may never be whole again." Her face fell, and I could see the reality of what she had done weighing heavily on her. "I understand that, but I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt my anger begin to ebb slightly, replaced by a deep sadness. I loved her, but how could I move past this? I needed time, space, something. I don't know if I can do this right now, I admitted, my voice shaking. I need some time to think. Her face fell further and I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I couldn't afford to be swayed by tears. I needed to be strong for myself. I'm going to stay here for a while in the guest room, I said, and as I turned to walk away, I felt her hand grasp my arm. Matt, please don't shut me out. I'm sorry, she cried, but I couldn't absorb her sorrow. I walked away, leaving her standing there, lost and broken, just like my heart. As I sank onto the bed in the guest room, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. I was a man caught in a web of love and betrayal, and I had no idea how to unravel it. The emotional impact of everything was suffocating, and I wished I could just wake up from this nightmare. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing. I had to make a decision. Could I forgive her? Could we find a way back to each other? The thought of losing her sent a wave of panic through me, but the pain of her betrayal lingered like a dark cloud. The next morning, I woke up feeling no clearer about what to do. I could feel Jenna's presence lingering in the house, but I also felt the ache of betrayal burn in my chest. I needed clarity, and the only way I could think to find it was to take a step back and truly consider my options. Would you like to continue with the next part? The days after my confrontation with Jenna were a blur. I busied myself with work, immersing myself in projects to escape the chaos at home. Each day felt like a balancing act, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while my heart felt like it had been ripped apart. I avoided Jenna as much as possible, retreating to the guest room and keeping interactions to a minimum. Jenna, on the other hand, attempted to reach out to me. She would leave notes on the kitchen counter, reminding me of our good memories or sending me texts that started with "I love you." I couldn't bring myself to respond to most of them. My heart was caught in a tug-of-war between love and betrayal. One evening, I returned home after work to find her sitting at the dining table, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, buried beneath layers of guilt and regret. "Matt, can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. I hesitated, feeling the familiar tension rise within me. I had been trying to avoid these conversations, but part of me knew I couldn't keep running forever. I nodded, bracing myself as I took a seat across from her. "I know things have been rough between us, and I really want to fix this," she said, her voice laced with desperation. "I've been talking to a counselor, and I think it would help us if we went together. I want to understand how I hurt you and what we can do to rebuild." A part of me wanted to reach out and comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But another part of me felt the walls I had built around my heart harden. "Jenna, I don't know if I'm ready for that," I admitted, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Please," she implored, tears welling up in her eyes again. "I promise I won't pressure you, I just want the chance to prove that I can be better." Her vulnerability sparked something in me, a flicker of hope mixed with caution. I could see how desperate she was to make amends, but the damage felt so deep. "I just need time," I said, my voice softer. "I can't just pretend everything is okay. I'm broken, Jenna, you broke me." She nodded, her face falling as she absorbed my words. "I understand. Just know that I'm here when you're ready. I'll do anything to support you." That night I lay in bed feeling overwhelmed. I reflected on my life with Jenna, the good times and the laughter, the dreams we had shared. Yet every time I tried to focus on those memories, the image of her writing love notes to Eric crept in, clouding everything. After a few sleepless nights, I decided I needed to clear my head. I reached out to my best friend Alex, who had always been there for me through thick and thin. We agreed to meet up for drinks the following evening. I knew I needed an outside perspective on everything that was happening, and I valued Alex's opinion. As we sat at our favorite bar, I poured my heart out. "I just don't know what to do, man. It feels like I'm living in some kind of twisted reality show. One minute I'm angry and the next I feel like I'm still in love with her," I explained, running my hands through my hair in frustration. Alex listened attentively, and I could see he was pondering his response. "Dude, it's tough. You have to ask yourself if you think she truly understands the gravity of what she did, if she's willing to do the hard work to earn your trust back. But don't forget to think about yourself too. What do you want? His words resonated with me. What did I want? Did I want to fight for our marriage? Part of me longed for the days when we'd laugh over coffee or cuddle on the couch, but those moments felt tainted now. I felt the weight of my decision bearing down on me. Over the next few days, I contemplated Alex's advice. I decided to give counseling a shot, not because I was convinced it would fix everything, but because I needed to understand my own feelings better. I needed to see if Jenna was truly remorseful and willing to do the work. When I mentioned the idea to Jenna, her face lit up with hope. "Really? You're willing to try?" she asked, her voice shaky but sweet. I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest but quickly reminded myself to be cautious. "Yes, but I need you to understand this isn't a magic fix. I can't just flip a switch and feel whole again," I said, my tone firm. "I want to know that you're committed to repairing this." "Absolutely," she replied fervently. "I'll do whatever it takes, Matt. I love you and I'm so sorry for everything." In the following weeks, we began attending couples therapy sessions. Each session was a roller coaster of emotions. It became a space for us to unpack our feelings, but I found it difficult to be vulnerable. Jenna opened up about her reasons for straying, her feelings of neglect and loneliness. I listened, trying to understand, but I still wrestled with my anger. There were moments of breakthrough, where I could see the flicker of hope in Jenna's eyes, and other times when I was consumed by doubt. As we navigated this fragile territory, I learned that healing was not linear. Some days were better than others, and that was okay. I began to see small changes in Jenna. She was more considerate, more present. She took the initiative to plan date nights, trying to rekindle the connection we once had. I watched her put in the effort, and part of me wanted to believe in the possibility of redemption. But as much as I wanted to forgive her, the shadows of doubt still lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was too soon to fully trust again. Her betrayal was a wound that needed time to heal, and I was still grappling with the emotional fallout. One night, after a particularly intense therapy session, we returned home. I could feel the tension in the air as I processed our discussion. Jenna reached for my hand, her eyes searching mine. "Matt, I know it's hard, but I need you to know how much I appreciate you giving this a chance," she said quietly. "I'm trying." I replied truthfully, but the words felt heavy. The vulnerability in her gaze made my heart ache, but I still felt the remnants of hurt clawing at my insides. "Just give it time," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I want to show you I can be the wife you deserve." I wanted to believe her, but trust was like a fragile glass. One wrong move and it could shatter. As I lay in bed that night, the weight of uncertainty settled over me. I wanted to fight for my marriage, but I had to guard my heart. I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened. I knew I had a long road ahead, but for the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a sliver of hope. Maybe we could navigate this storm together. Would you like to continue with the next part? As the weeks progressed, our therapy sessions became a routine, a well-worn path that I found both comforting and exhausting. I began to understand Jenna's perspective more deeply, yet every revelation felt like a double-edged sword. While her honesty about her feelings of neglect brought some clarity, it also dredged up memories of pain that I struggled to reconcile with the love I still felt for her. One evening, after a session that had been particularly intense, Jenna suggested we try to reconnect outside of therapy. "Let's plan a weekend getaway," she proposed, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "Somewhere quiet, just the two of us. We can take a break from everything and focus on each other." I hesitated, the idea of being alone with her both thrilling and terrifying. "I don't know, Jenna. A weekend away feels too soon," I finally replied, my heart racing. "I understand if you're not ready, but I really think it could help us reconnect," she said softly, her voice earnest. "We need some time together without distractions, just us." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe getting away would allow us to shed the weight of our conversations and just enjoy each other's company. I hoped it would rekindle some of the warmth we once shared. We decided to spend the weekend at a rustic cabin in the mountains, a place that had always felt like a retreat from the chaos of life. As we drove there, the tension in the car began to dissipate. Beautiful scenery surrounded us, and I found myself smiling as we talked about everything from our favorite movies to future dreams. For the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. When we arrived at the cabin, the air was fresh and crisp, filled with the scent of pine trees. It felt like a world away from our previous turmoil. Jenna unpacked with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen in a while, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth as I watched her. There was something about being in such a beautiful place that made everything feel lighter. That evening, we lit a fire in the fireplace, the flames casting a warm glow around the room. We shared a bottle of wine, reminiscing about our early days together, the memories flowing freely. I could see the spark of our connection reigniting, and it filled me with cautious optimism. "Remember our first camping trip?" Jenna asked, laughter bubbling in her voice. "You were terrified of the bears." I chuckled, recalling how convinced I had been that we'd encounter a bear, and it would be the end of us. "I was just being cautious," I replied, grinning, "but you were fearless. You insisted we roast marshmallows right outside the tent." She laughed, and for a moment I allowed myself to forget the pain. It was refreshing to share laughter, to let the warmth of nostalgia wash over us. As the night wore on, we found ourselves drifting closer together, the connection between us palpable. Later, as we sat on the couch, lost in conversation, I felt my heart soften. Jenna looked at me with a vulnerability that tugged at my soul. "Matt, I know I hurt you deeply and I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making this right. I love you and I miss the way we used to be," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I miss those moments too," I admitted, my guard starting to lower. "But I still have so many questions and so much hurt, it's hard to just forget." "I know," she replied, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm willing to work through it all, step by step. I just need you to be open with me." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a rush of emotions. It was clear that she was trying, and a part of me wanted to believe in the possibility of healing. "I don't know if I can fully forgive you right now, but I'm willing to work on it together," I said, my voice steady. We shared a long, deep conversation that night, where we laid bare our fears and hopes. It felt like a turning point, a step toward rebuilding what had been broken. I was still wary, but I could feel the walls I had built around my heart starting to crack. The next day, we ventured out for a hike, the beauty of nature surrounding us. As we walked hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of connection. The fresh air invigorated my spirit, and I found myself smiling again. But just as I was starting to feel good about us, reality came crashing back. While exploring, we stumbled upon an old campsite, remnants of a fire pit and a few scattered belongings. The sight triggered a flood of memories, memories of our past camping trips, our dreams, and ultimately the betrayal. I felt a surge of anger bubble up. "This is where you and Eric would have come, isn't it?" I snapped, my voice rising unexpectedly. "Isn't it?" Jenna's expression shifted, surprise and hurt flashing across her face. "Matt, that's not fair. We're trying to move forward," she pleaded, her eyes wide with distress. "I'm sorry," I said, my heart racing. It's hard. I want to be here with you, but I can't help but picture you with him." "I regret everything, Matt," she said, her voice shaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost, and I'm trying to find my way back." Her vulnerability pulled at my heartstrings, but the jealousy and betrayal surged. "I know you're trying, but it's not that easy for me," I replied, the fight leaving my voice. We stood in silence for a moment, the tension thick in the air. I turned away, needing space to gather my thoughts. I felt the weight of doubt creeping back in, threatening to drown out the hope I had begun to feel. When we returned to the cabin, I found myself retreating into my thoughts. I needed to process everything. I had come to this weekend hoping for a breakthrough, but the shadows of doubt were always lurking, reminding me of the fractures in our relationship. That night, as we sat in front of the fire, I wrestled with my emotions. I could feel Jenna watching me, waiting for a sign that I was still with her. But as I gazed into the flames, I felt as though I was standing at a crossroads. Could I truly commit to rebuilding our love, or was I setting myself up for further heartbreak? There were no easy answers. "Matt, I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter how long it takes," Jenna said quietly, breaking the silence. "I love you and I'm willing to fight for us." Her words hung in the air, filled with hope and uncertainty. As I looked into her eyes, I realized that I had to make a choice, and that choice would determine the future of our relationship. Would you like to continue with the final part? As the fire crackled softly between us, I felt the weight of Jenna's words, and for the first time in a long while, I sensed clarity pushing through the fog of pain. The flickering flames mirrored the turmoil inside my heart. Could I truly navigate this complex web of love and betrayal? My mind raced with the memories of our happier times while also grappling with the bitterness of her betrayal. Jenna, I began, my voice steady but laced with vulnerability. I don't want the pain of the past to overshadow the possibility of our future. I love you and I want to fight for us, but I need to be honest about how I feel. Her eyes widened, a mixture of hope and fear reflected in her gaze. I'm ready to hear it, she said, leaning closer, her expression earnest. I'm scared of being hurt again. Scared that if we try to move forward, I won't be able to let go of the past, I confessed, the words flowing out with a weight I had been carrying for too long. I understand, she said softly, her eyes shimmering with tears. But we can't change the past. We can only work on the future together. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Matt. I love you and I want to rebuild what we lost. Her sincerity struck a chord deep within me. I realized that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but the fact that we were both willing to fight for our love gave me hope. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settling in. I want to try, I said, my voice firm. I want to rebuild this with you, but it's going to take time, and I need you to understand that I'll have good days and bad days. Of course, she said, relief spilling over her features. I'll be right there with you every step of the way, I promise. That night, we stayed up late, talking and reconnecting in a way that felt both familiar and new. I could feel the tension between us start to dissolve, replaced by a tentative bond that had begun to form again. We shared our dreams, our fears, and our hopes for the future, laying the foundation for a new chapter in our lives. Over the next few weeks, we continued our therapy sessions, learning to navigate the emotional minefield that had become our relationship. Each session brought its own challenges, but we faced them together. Some days felt like monumental leaps forward, while others were laden with doubt and frustration. There were nights when I found myself staring at the ceiling, wide awake, questioning whether I was making the right choice. But through it all, I noticed small but significant changes in Jenna. She became more attentive, more present. She took the time to listen to my feelings, to validate my fears. It was as if she had awakened a part of herself that had been dormant for so long, and I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. One evening, after a particularly tough therapy session, Jenna surprised me with a simple dinner at home. The table was set with candles, and the aroma of her favorite pasta filled the air. I thought we could celebrate our small victories, she said with a soft smile as I walked in. As we sat down to eat, I felt warmth spreading in my chest. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. Over dinner, we shared laughter and stories, reminiscing about our early days together. As the evening wore on, I realized that I was starting to feel something I hadn't felt in a while: joy. After dinner, we moved to the living room where we cuddled up on the couch, the familiar warmth returning between us. We watched an old romantic comedy, and for a while the world outside faded away. I could feel my heart softening, the walls I had built around my emotions slowly crumbling. Matt, Jenna said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. I just want you to know how grateful I am for your willingness to work on this with me. I know it's not easy, but your willingness to try means more than you know. I want this to work, Jenna. I really do, I replied, my voice filled with sincerity. But I need you to know that this is a journey. It won't be perfect and there will be bumps along the way. I'm ready for the journey, no matter how long it takes, she said, her eyes shining with determination. As I looked into her eyes, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. It wouldn't be a quick fix, and there would be challenges ahead, but I was willing to give it a shot. I realized that love isn't just about the good times, it's also about weathering the storms together. In the months that followed, we continued to rebuild our foundation. The road wasn't without its struggles. There were moments of doubt and pain, but there were also moments of joy, laughter, and rediscovery. The scars of betrayal remained, a reminder of what we had endured, but they no longer defined us. Through therapy and open communication, I began to see Jenna not just as the woman who had hurt me, but as a partner who was willing to grow and change. I learned to trust her again, not just in words, but in actions. As we celebrated our 2-year anniversary post-betrayal, I felt a sense of pride in how far we had come. We had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger. Looking back on the journey, I realized that the experience had taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. It showed me that relationships require work, patience, and forgiveness. To anyone reading this, I want to share this. If you find yourself in a situation where trust has been shattered, know that healing is possible, but it requires both partners to be committed to the process. It's not easy, but love can endure when both are willing to put in the effort. As I sat with Jenna that evening, reflecting on our journey, I felt grateful for the second chance we had been given. Love had not only survived the storm, but had emerged more vibrant, more resilient than ever before. Together, we were ready for whatever lay ahead.